Although it was nice to be nice in the movie industry, to the movie industry, I should say, for their best works that they've made in 2023. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, what we mostly do around here is rant about terrible movies. I think that's what we have done at this point. So these are all the bad 2023 movies. All of them. These are the movies you should avoid or maybe you should watch just to see how badly they fumbled a lot of these movies. But without further ado, here's a few honorable mentions. The honorable mention is The Flash. It would have made the list, but I just dislike the movie more than The Flash, so it got off scot free, but I still hate the Flash movie. I did not like that movie at all. I thought it was a complete garbage mess, and it also should get dinged for using AI to bring back dead actors just to play characters, especially knowing the context of why certain actors died was related to them playing a superhero and thinking they will never, ever get another role in Hollywood. So they were like, fuck it, and my life. Not the greatest circumstances that you would want to bring a person back from the dead, by the way. And also just so shittily done. So fuck you, Flash, for even attempting to do that bullshit. Also, just fuck the Flash movie because fuck Ezra Miller. But I mean, okay, we could take the movie away from the artist. Like I said, I still hate this movie. I still do not like it. But it wasn't top 10 worst movies. So I got lucky. Also, Five Nights at Freddy's would have been an honorable mention. It was a movie. I can respect my friends that like Five Nights at Freddy's, but I didn't care about the movie. I didn't even see this in the theater. I saw it on Peacock. So it definitely sucked all the air out of the room watching that movie. But anyways, these are my top 10 movies. These are the movies that I thought, Hollywood, you need to do better. Stop making this garbage. Number 10, The Marvels was a movie that I saw in the theater, unfortunately. I didn't even want to watch this movie, but my niece wanted to watch it. So I was like, you know what? Okay, it can't be that bad. It was that bad. The plot is stupid. Because if Carol just thought of reigniting the sun when she was there, the plot of this movie didn't really need to happen, like, at all. Also, the switching stuff wasn't the plot. It was a gimmick that didn't really last that long in the movie anyway, so there's that. At the least, I could say the action is nice, but this is one of the low points of the MCU, in my opinion. Not because it has anything to do with who's starring in it. I thought Miss Marvel was great. I thought Monica Rambeau was great. I still don't really care about Captain Marvel as a character, but she wasn't as bad in this one. I can't say the same for Nick Fury. He was pretty shit in this movie, but this movie, man, The Marvels, is just studio filmmaking at its second worst. Not at its full worst, but you can just tell the studio just was like, fuck it. We'll release it. We got to make our November 10th release date. What was the plot of this movie? I literally saw it a month ago, to be fair. 2 months almost, maybe. No, it's a month. But, like, I don't know what the fuck the plot of the movie was. What was the plot? Somebody tell me the plot. Even when people defend this movie, they're like, it's fun. You don't have people avidly really defending this movie. And even if they are, they're not saying it's one of the best movies, or they don't really give a good example to why this is one of the best MCU movies in their opinion. They just say, it's fun. And hey, you know what? I do like some fun movies. I like the first Shazam. Guardians of the Galaxy is fun. But this is like doing a fun movie bad. It's superficially fun, but it has none of the elements, as, Sean Chandler would say. But yeah, it is literally just a nothing movie. Even the post-credit scene with Beast. Who gives a fuck anymore? Who cares? Clearly, people are tired. Sorry. People are tired of what the MCU's feeding us, and they better switch it up, because the route that they're going, and especially with movies like the Marvels, it's not really going to be a good route, in my opinion. All right, number 9, Fast X. Fitting that a car just did that right past my house when I talk about Fast X. But, these Fast and Furious movies, they're not awards movies. We're not coming here to see fucking cinema here. We're here to have a fun time. It's just Fast X wasn't really that fun to begin with. It was pretty boring. And once I'm saying a Fast and Furious movie is boring, that's how you know it's pretty bad. The plot, it's another one of these 2-part movies. Hollywood was just in love with 2-part movies this summer. Spider-Verse, Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious. It's just that Fast and Furious did it the worst out of them. At least, unlike Beyond the Spider-Verse, we know when Fast X Part 2 is coming out, so if you are really scared about Dominic Mysterio's life, even though he's probably going to make it out alive in the first few minutes of the next movie, you'll be alright. Although, the Vin Diesel claims are pretty bad right now for him, so I don't know if Fast X Part 2 is his priority. Actually, who am I kidding? It's Vin Diesel. Of course it's his priority. He's going to make that movie no matter what. Unless he gets put behind bars. Then, yikes. But, yeah, Fast X was okay. Jason Momoa carried this movie, but that's about it. Alright, number 8 is probably one of the most disappointing movies of the year for me, Renfield. I was excited to see Renfield. I thought it would be one of the funniest comedy movies to come out this year, and it was not. It was a pretty messy movie. It was all over the place. It wasn't really that funny. It had Awkwafina in it. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I kind of just want this shit to end. They had an interesting idea, maybe for a short movie, but not for a whole movie. Ben Schwartz is in this movie, and I usually like Ben Schwartz. Leonardo, Sonic the Hedgehog, Dewey Duck. But he was just annoying in this movie. Like, it's more of the worst tendencies of Ben Schwartz in this movie. Nicholas Hoult is in this, our future Lex Luthor fighting Superman. And the jokes write themselves. Superman Dracula. I mean, Nicolas Cage was decent in this movie. It's just, I did not like Renfield. This might be a hot take. I genuinely hated Renfield. I did not like this movie at all. And I was disappointed by this movie as well. Alright, number 7 is Wish. This is the most slam dunk concept Disney Animation could have done, and they still fumbled this movie, which is crazy. This movie was just bad. Like, it was just bad. It was like AI wrote this movie, because it was like, Disney was like, just write a fantasy movie and add the wishing star and whatever. What was the arc that the main character went through? She didn't really change at all. She just was like, oh, the king's evil. We gotta stop him. Even though the king was kind of right, and none of this would have happened if it wasn't about her grandfather's wish. Because what Magnifico was saying was making perfect sense to me, to be honest. Like, it was actually reasonable, and he only got pushed that far because Asha just wanted her grandpa's wish to happen. I mean, I get you can't blindly trust authority figures all the time, but in the case of wishes and magic, I'm gonna trust the magic guy to know what he's doing. Except when he started crushing wishes, he became more powerful, and then he had a book, and he became more evil. This is the second Disney movie. There's more Disney movies probably, but this is the second one in recent memory where you have an evil book that completely corrupts the character that was kind of good, and now they're just a full-on villain, and now they have murderous tendencies, and I was just like, man, this sucked. The music was awful, by the way, and that's usually Disney Animation's strongest suit. Like, even Encanto, which I'm not the biggest fan of, I can say, hey, the music in Encanto, it slapped. Even some of the Frozen songs were catchy. There's no songs in Wish that I will really remember. Besides, this is the thanks I get. Sorry. And that's only because They played that all the time in marketing. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I say marketing? Because Disney barely marketed this movie. But to be honest, I would barely promote this movie too. The fact that they used this to celebrate their 100th anniversary just shows everything wrong with modern Disney. Because this movie was ass. Like, pure ass. And I'm not surprised that it's bombing at the box office because there's nothing to really gain from this movie. Like, at all. So, whatever. You'll probably be forgotten in the abyss of Disney animation content that they've made. Alright, number 6. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. I already talked extensively about this movie in my DCEU ranking. So, if you want to watch that video, you can. But basically, what I said is that this is just one of the worst follow-ups ever. Another disappointing movie on this list. As you're seeing, there's a trend here of movies that just disappoint a lot. But yeah, this movie, it disappointed. It disappointed a whole lot. It is the most generic superhero movie ever. That's it. It's just this and Black Adam are the most generic. And it's crazy to me that we've had 3 of these damn movies and we've never had Shazam and Black Adam fight each other in any of them. But instead we have the Sisters of Atlas, which were boring as hell. Who cares about them? Rachel Zegler's character is into Freddy, for reasons, I guess. I don't know. Helen Mirren's in this. I mean, she really needed that money between this and Fast X. But, I don't know. This movie exists. It was made, but who cares? We don't have to talk about it anymore. Because the DCU's finally dead. And it deserved to die. Number 5, Strays. This is another disappointing movie. As you see, Renfield, this, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, probably my most disappointing movies of the year. Because Strays is just nasty. It's disgusting. It's not really that funny. There's maybe like one good joke with the serial killer and his dog. That's about it. This is probably the worst thing Lord and Miller have ever made. And this year was not a great year for Lord and Miller. Despite them making Across the Spider-Verse, their true colors were revealed to the press about how they treated their animators. Yikes. Not great. What was also not great was making us watch Strays. Well, nobody really made us watch this. I'm surprised they even thought that this was acceptable to even release. Like, this should have just been like a DVD, bargain bin movie. That's what Strays is. Very disappointing. And it has a great, you had everything working with you. This was supposed to be the year of Randall Park, man. Randall Park. Poor Randall Park. He's just in bad movies this year. Number 4, Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken. I know what you're going to say. It's a kid's movie, but kids deserve better than this garbage. Because Ruby Gilman was ass. I know it has its fan base in the animation community, and that they love this movie, and that's great. And I can understand the idea of this movie and how it could have been good, but it just wasn't good. And it's a very weird thing from DreamWorks because they played it safe. They usually don't play it safe a lot, but they played it very safe for this movie. It's very cookie cutter. It's very bland. Excuse me. Hold on. We gotta cut that out. Or maybe leave it in. Who knows? But anyways, Ruby Gilman is just so generic that it just becomes a superhero movie with this idea of, ooh, what if Krakens lived with the people? Except we already had an animated movie like that, Luca. And Meet the Gilmans, which this was originally called, was also supposed to come out the same year as Luca, but then Luca came out. And they were like, oh, we can't really do that. So I guess they reworked the movie during those years. And then randomly in March, they were like, hey, Ruby Gilman, it's going to hit theaters. And I was just like, okay, DreamWorks. Because the only movie we knew that was in development from them was Trolls 3. That actually ended up being okay. So, it's not on this list, that's for sure. But, yeah, Ruby Gilman was just bad. Very bad. Probably the worst animated movie I've seen this year. Alright, number 3, Peter Pan. and Wendy. This is the battle between Disney, modern Disney, that tries to be hip and relevant and also very diverse thinking. And I like, you know what? I think diversity is a good thing. I think the way Disney does diversity is very bad because it's very much about the numbers. It's very much about trying to appeal to a certain demographic for money, and it's not genuine. That's the problem that I have with Disney when they do diversity. That's not genuine. And that's how I felt about Peter Pan and Wendy when they did the Lost Boys, because they did the Lost Boys and Girls, and I was like, this just doesn't feel genuine. This just feels like you did it just to get brownie points. And that's the best way I can explain how Disney handles diversity. But outside of that, this movie's pretty boring. And I can see what the director wanted to do with this movie, which is far more interesting. And you could just also feel Disney saying, no, you gotta remake this moment from the Disney version. You gotta remake this moment. And so it literally was a movie that was fighting the studio's vision of what they wanted. I'm sorry, vision is too strong of a word for Disney. What they want it to be, which is just a live action beat for beat of the original Peter Pan, and what the director actually wanted to do, which is a more interesting, unique take on Peter Pan. And then you have these two versions clash, and you end up just not getting any good version of Peter Pan. You don't get what Disney wanted it to be. You don't get what the director wanted it to be. The unhappiest beats of both worlds. Alright, number 2, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Another comic book movie. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was very bad. It's not a good movie. It's a very, very bad movie. But at this point, I just feel like nobody gave a shit making this movie, except James Wan. James Wan was really trying. And there are moments in the movie where you're like, yeah, that's what James Wan wanted to make. But this movie's been just cut. There's been so many cuts of this movie. It's been so reworked in the editing bay. There was a Batman cameo that was going to be in this originally. Then it was going to be Michael Keaton, then Ben Affleck. Then they were like, fuck Batman. Why are we even going to bring Batman? And then they were like, oh, this is the last DCEU movie that we're making? Not even the official name of the franchise, by the way. Warner Bros. Never gave it an official name. We just gave it the DCEU, and Warner Bros. Just kind of ran with it. I guess they were like, whatever, collection of DC movies. I don't know. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom just kind of sums up everything wrong with the DCEU. It's unfocused. It's all over the place. It's cringe at some parts. It's a superhero movie in 2023. What do you expect? It's very bad. And the water effects. I'm not even the biggest fan of Avatar: The Way of Water. Like, I genuinely do not like that movie. But I can at least admit that the water effects are thousands of times ahead of whatever the fuck this shit was. Because what the fuck was the water effects in this movie? And, like, at least Orb was in this. Orb was decent. But this was pretty bad. And definitely not worth a trip to the theater. If you're a superhero fan, if you're a DC fan, just stream it on Max. Don't go out to the theater. You don't really need to see this in the theater. Especially since the last scene in the DCEU is a guy eating a fucking cockroach in his burger. But anyways, number 1 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Another comic book movie, but this time from Marvel. And this was the worst movie of the year. Like, this is factory filmmaking at its worst. MODOK, just for introducing that monstrosity into cinema, that should already kind of be a crime. I've never liked Peyton Reed as a director. I'm pretty sure he's a nice person, but as a director, he's not interesting. He doesn't have his own flair. He is a studio director. He's a yes man. So whatever Marvel Studios wants, he's going to give them exactly that with no flair and no substance. They need a comedic Ant-Man movie, he'll make it. He needs a buddy cop Ant-Man movie, he'll make it. They need a Ant-Man movie that doesn't follow any of the other two Ant-Man movies and tries to set up their big multiverse saga, but it actually ends up not mattering because they're going to move away from Kang anyways because this movie didn't do well, and the stuff with Jonathan Majors. But still make it a boringly bland, filmed in a sandbox, god-awful CGI, worst use of the fucking volume that I've ever seen type of movie. He'll make it. Not a good movie, by the way. I find it fitting that Paul Rudd said that the set smelled like manure because this movie is the equivalent to manure. It is the worst product Marvel Studios has ever made, to the point that I'm even thinking about making a video of the Ant-Man trilogy next year and really just diving into why I hate the Ant-Man sequels. Because they are just awful. They are just awful. What the fuck was the arc that Scott Lang went through? What did we learn in this movie? What was the point of this movie? Why did we do any of this? Why? What was the point? It devalues Kang. Ant-Man didn't really change as a character. Like, what are we doing here? It was just like, oh, okay, I guess Quantumania was a thing that was made. It didn't need to be made. And in its place, we could have gotten a good Fantastic Four movie way earlier. But now we gotta do this stupid fucking Ant-Man movie that it does nothing for the character or Kang or anybody involved, really. And it's just a blemish on the MCU brand that didn't need to happen, but because they were like, the Ant-Man movies were doing so well to begin with, yeah, your lowest grossing mini franchise definitely really needed a third movie. Look, as much as I hate the Ant-Man movies, Ant-Man's arc ended at Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's it. His arc was over. And you could have done something cool with him and Teenage Cassie, but you didn't. So it just adds to the question of, why did we do this? If nothing, if you're not going to challenge anything or whatever, let the man be happy. Just 2 movies is enough for some characters sometimes. Marvel needs to know that not every character needs a goddamn movie, and especially since their roster is getting more and more packed because of the Fox acquisition, there were some characters that just don't need a movie. We didn't need Quantumania. We didn't need Eternals. We didn't need the Marvels. These are movies that, if you're gonna do, at least give us a reason to care. Otherwise, these are movies that are just prolonging getting the Fantastic Four and X-Men, which are the main things that we fucking want to begin with. None of this adventure, quote-unquote, that we went on has led to anything for the MCU. It probably won't lead to anything in the MCU, seeing that they're going to move away from Kang anyways. It was the stupidest, blandest, most pointless detour that the MCU has ever took. And with that, that is the end of my top 10 worst 2023 movies. Was there a 2023 movie that you thought was worser than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? What did you think that movie was? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next year, where I reveal my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2023.